All right, everyone, thank you for coming in and listening to this podcast on behalf of Crime Victims United, Public Safety. I am so excited to have two amazing guests here tonight. We have Eric Siddall, who is a Deputy District Attorney at Los Angeles County, out there fighting for public safety and for victims. And we have Lauren Pettengrew, who unfortunately has joined forces with Crime Victims United and many people throughout the state because of the murder of her brother, and has become an amazing advocate for public safety and for victims of crime. So welcome to both of you. Tonight, I really want to focus on some of these so-called criminal justice reforms that we are just fighting daily in the legislature. You're fighting, Eric, in your county. Lauren, you're out there speaking about it. And in particular, one called SB 300. But before we do that, Eric, I'd love to just have you talk a little bit about yourself, you know, where you've come from, your career there, and what you've seen happening in LA, which is just devastating to that beautiful county and city.
Thank you. Well, first, let me thank Lauren, because it's really important that we get victims of crime. And I consider any family member who has ever had someone lost a victim of crime. So it's extremely important that we have voices like yours out there, because it really gives a real life example of what the devastation that crime does to families and the loss of loved ones. So thank you, first of all, for agreeing to do this.
Thank you.
I'm the Vice President of the Association of Deputy District Attorneys. I've been involved in our union for about 10 years. I'm also a Deputy District Attorney. One of the reasons why I became very involved in our union is because I was very concerned about the direction that California was going in terms of public safety. And I think this latest bill kind of exemplifies some of those problems. The state has moved in a way that, look, I believe in reform. I think reform is very necessary. I advocate for good reform, good responsible reform that will last more than one election cycle. But I think that giving a break on people who commit murder is probably not the area where we want to line up the sentences. We want to make sure that people who are entering the criminal justice system for the first time remain there only one time and don't are not a part of a revolving door of a criminal justice system. That's the goal should be the goal of reform. But if someone commits a murder, especially a heinous murder, and that's really what we're talking about in terms of special circumstance murders, we need the law to punish them to the fullest extent. And that's what special circumstance does. It actually punishes people with life without the possibility of parole.
And I think, Eric, you hit it so on the head. I think everybody on this call and most people out there agree we need common sense and balance. So can you explain from the district attorneys, from the legal standpoint, special circumstances? Because these really are the worst of the worst. And yet we seem to be excusing these horrendous murders and really kind of giving them a pass, especially with SB 300. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, I think in order to understand special circumstance murder, it's also important to understand how other jurisdictions treat murder. For example, in the United States has two punishments for murder. When I mean the United States, I'm talking about our federal government. There is life without the possibility of parole. They just call it life. They don't even add all those extra words. If you get convicted of first-degree murder in our federal system, you get life or you get death. That's it. In California, because we are a pretty progressive state, we make sure that only the worst of the worst cases are eligible for that type of punishment. So what the United States punishes with life or death, we generally punish with only 25 years to life. In other words, regular, normal first-degree murder. But for the worst cases, we have life without possibility of parole or special circumstance murder. And those are cases that involve torture, active gang members killing people, in this particular case, we're talking about felony murder, but not only just felony murder. If you're an accomplice with felony murder, you have to be what's called a major participant with reckless indifference, which means that you have to have more than just a normal accomplice role in this case. You actually have to have been known as someone who does kill people, who has a total disregard for human life. And these definitions were created by both our United States Supreme Court and our California Supreme Court, and the California case is called People v. Banks.
With Gascon, what has happened, and how does that kind of, when we're looking at SB 300, which seeks to really do away with this for these really active accomplices, what have you seen that effect from those policies there?
Well, the problem is that you don't properly punish people then, right? Because you cannot say that a normal first-degree murder, even though that is absolutely heinous, is the same as a murder when you're torturing someone and you're getting pleasure from the torture. It doesn't delineate punishment. It doesn't appropriately punish the person for the activity that they're doing.
So when we look at Gascon's policies, which really mirror what SB 300 is trying to do, to, as you said, to a very active, I think you used the word, involved accomplice, somebody that's a part of this, it really mirrors that lesser punishment. And it also allows for those people to be released back into society to harm again, correct?
The voters eliminated the ability for judges to strike a life without possibility of parole sentence. In other words, they said, look, if the jurors find that these facts have been proven and the case is so heinous that it rises to one of these very special types of cases, very rarefied types of murder, then that person must be sent to prison for the rest of their life without any ability to get out. And so this bill would eliminate the voters' will to hold certain types of criminals especially accountable. And the other thing I think that people have to remember is that when we say 25 to life or normal murder, that's no longer the case because of the amount of credits that these murders are receiving in state prison. Obviously, with LWOP, with those who have been punished with life without possibility of parole, those credits are not available for those individuals.
So I think you brought up a really important point, and as a deputy district attorney trying these cases, isn't it true? The jury not only has to find the person committed the murder, then you have to try the special circumstances, correct?
100%. So there has to be a special finding by the jury that once you've found them usually guilty of first-degree murder, by the way, so most of it is first-degree murder, right? Once you've done that, then you have to prove the extra enhancement. In fact, so this is all based upon the law. This is all based upon juries making findings, and that we have to prove those cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And then there's review, right? Because once we've done all of that, the judge who handled the case reviews it to make sure that the trial was done properly. And then after that, there's the appellate process. So there's a court of appeal that will look at the case, make sure that it was properly done. And then there is, of course, the California Supreme Court that could also review it. And then, of course, we also have review within the federal district court system where habeas petitions can be reviewed so that those federal judges will review these cases as well. So it's not like, we say, hey, this guy committed special circ, it's all over, done. You send him,
done.
right.
We're going to court this next month, and
right.
My brother was killed in 2007, so it's never ending.
It's never ending. It's never ending.
Horrendous for the victims. But then also, it just seems to me when you look at SB 300, like you said, we're really usurping our entire system. I mean, our country was built on this jury system. And I still think it's one of the greatest systems in the world because most countries don't have it. Yet our legislature is really trying to usurp it and take away what the voters want, what the people want. And really, wouldn't you agree, the whole basis of our system is that we have this jury system, and now we're just saying, well, it doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I could understand safeguards beyond everything I just discussed, right? And we have another safeguard. We don't need to have this ability for judges to strike this special circumstance. If a governor feels that this person who is been convicted of special circumstance murder feels that this person has been so reformed, so changed, they can always use their power of clemency or pardon to release that person or to shorten that person's sentence. So the idea that there are no safeguards within the system once someone is convicted of life without possibility of parole not only ignores the tremendous amount of review that occurs on each of these cases, but it also ignores the governor's power to intervene in extraordinary circumstances.
So when Cortese, who's spearheading this in the legislature, is out there saying, oh, you know, these poor people and they don't have these protections, really, we're misleading the public. Is that not true?
Well, I think whenever you talk about someone who's raped and pillaged and murdered in order to receive a special circumstance murder as a poor person, I think at that point, I'm not sure how you'd even engage in a logical argument with that person. Again, we're talking about the most heinous cases. And but to answer your original question, no, I don't think he's being truthful because there are safeguards.
And another fact that he's not being truthful on, and Lauren and all of us had a discussion on this, I think for many victims, the fear of the retroactivity of this bill. You know, like Lauren said, it's been how many years, Lauren, since your brother was?
It'll be 15 years in September.
So they're still going to court. They're still having to battle these appeals. But now for her family becomes this nightmare of retroactivity. And you brought up a really good point. Although he said on the floor, oh, it won't apply, it'll only be effective as of January of this year. Are we misleading the public again here?
So there's a doctrine in California state law that says if the defendant benefits from a change in the law, their sentence benefits. In other words, they'll get a reduction of their sentence. The courts will send that back to the trial court for resentencing purposes so that benefit is given to the defendant. In other words, it becomes retroactive if they get a benefit in the sentence. This is a benefit that they would receive. So you can't simply just change the law and say it's effective January 1st of 2023. That doesn't affect retroactivity. You have to explicitly state in the bill that this is not retroactive. Otherwise, it will be retroactive, and any open case that's out there, like Lauren's case, if they're coming back to court, you can get resentenced. So it is not truthful to say that all you have to do is say January, you know, the effective date is such and such date. You must explicitly state it is not retroactive before January 1st of 2023.
And Lauren, from the victim's perspective, how, I can't even fathom how, putting into words how devastating that would be for you, your family, for the hundreds of victims that we see.
Yes. I felt like, as devastating as everything was with my brother, when we finally, after years of trial, 3 different trials, got that life without parole sentence for all 3 men that all were equally involved, it was a feeling of, I never have to come back to this courthouse again. I never have to be in the same room with these people again or around their families. I thought it was done and over. And the thought that I might spend the rest of my life going to parole hearings for 3 separate people. I'm an only child now, and my parents are going to get older, and I don't want to do that alone. I don't want to have to do that and defend my justice for the rest of my life.
Lauren, and if you're comfortable, again, Eric's talked about special circumstances. There were 3 people involved in the murder. Can you tell us a little bit about your brother's murder, if you're comfortable with that?
Yes. So in 2007, there were 3 Marines that were based in Camp Pendleton, and my brother only knew 2 of them. They were friends, siblings of my brother's girlfriend, and they were cousins, and they gave my brother a laptop in exchange for cocaine. I think the DA in the case kind of said my brother was not the next Pablo Escobar, but if you wanted to get something, he probably knew somebody who could get it for you. So they gave him a laptop, and they were trying to get a hold of him, trying to come pick it up. He said you could pick it up, but then he didn't answer his phone. They were complaining, the 2 of them, and another Marine who unfortunately had served multiple tours in Iraq and sustained significant injuries, overheard them complaining, and one of them had said, "I wish I had a gun. I would pop or bust a cap in his ass." And the man who did not know my brother said, "I have a gun." And they said, "Where is it?" They drove him 40 miles south of Camp Pendleton and then all the way back north to Long Beach to get to my brother's apartment. They barged in, woke him up when he was sleeping on the couch. He was a little out of it, is what they described him, maybe on some kind of Oxycontin or something. And they started demanding drugs, put a gun to his head and said, call your dealer, call your dealer. We're going to count to 10. And started doing a countdown. My brother pulled out his phone and he actually was fumbling through it. And the last person who had called them was actually the man standing in front of him. And so he called him and he's like, "Why are you calling me?" And they got even more upset about that. And then he ended up getting to 10 and shot him in the head. And there was no chance that would have happened had the other 2 who did not pull the trigger. It's their fault that happened. They wanted that murder to happen. They recruited him basically as an unpaid hitman and took advantage of the fact that he did have significant brain injuries and that he had a gun, and he was willing to do that to, I think he said that he felt like these were his Marines, his fellow Marines. He felt like someone had wronged them and he was defending his fellow Marines by doing that. He didn't want my brother dead. He didn't know my brother. He had never even heard of him until an hour or 2 prior. So, and they found lots of evidence. Like, none of this is, I have to say that a lot of things that have come out since SB 300, since one of them is the poster child for the supporters of the bill, are false. What they say about him, it's not true. He was the ringleader of the group, and if it wasn't for him, my brother would be alive. And there's plenty of evidence to show that. There's incriminating voicemails left on my brother's phone saying that we're going to come and find you. It's going to be so bad. We're going to F you up. It's going to get ugly. We're going to use Marine intelligence to hunt you down, or military intelligence, I should say. And so it's just a completely ridiculous, pointless killing over an ounce of cocaine at the very most. I believe the computer might have been worth $200.
So it got charged as special circs, and they all have life without the possibility of parole, correct?
Correct. The man who ended up shooting my brother, the one who was an Iraq war vet, he actually admitted once he was arrested, he admitted to everything. He pled guilty, and he also testified against the other 2 without a deal, because he said, I know what I did was wrong, but the family deserves to know the truth. And I know I did was wrong, but it's because of the part of the brain that he lost during a suicide bomb. That's the part of the brain that kind of shows that compassion and connection. So he knew what he said, I know it's wrong, but I did it, and I'm going to pay the consequences.
So in hearing that, Eric, you talked a little bit about how the accomplices have to be active and really used certain words from the Supreme Court, and I'm not saying them right. Can you elaborate on that? You know, in this circumstances, the planning, is that make them active and involved? That's more than just being there.
Right. So there's a bunch of factors that are involved in this type of analysis. And you know, some of it is like, do you know how dangerous is this person? A dangerous person? Have they committed violent acts before? Have they committed murder before? Were they aware that the person that is the actual killer committed or had a gun? So it kind of goes into, it really is an analysis to show how involved this accomplice is. And I think, you know, one of the things that's important for people to understand is a lot of murders don't occur but for the accomplice. The accomplice plays a vital role in getting things done. And certain accomplices plays different roles. And that's why in California, for its entire existence as a state, accomplices have been treated the same as the person who pulls the trigger, because the knowledge is that the person who pulls the trigger can't actually do their job without the accomplice.
Again, and I think in my brother's case, the accomplices couldn't do their job as what they wanted to happen without the shooter.
Right. I mean,
it was like
your case is actually interesting because it's really the accomplices who are the drivers of the violence, right?
Right.
So it's the shooter is almost like an arm for those guys.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I know, Eric, you're going to have to jump off in a second, and Lauren, I want to talk a little bit more with you. But obviously, I think the whole world knows that Los Angeles has become a failed experiment for public safety and for victims. I'd just like you to speak a little bit about that. And like you said earlier, we all believe in reform. We all believe in balance. But when it goes so far as the policies in your office, where you're not allowed to charge certain things, where victims have no representation at parole hearings anymore. I don't even know if they're even allowed in your building anymore, to be quite honest. Can you talk about the effect for prosecutors and for victims and what you're seeing?
Well, look, I became a prosecutor because I want to help the underdog that was the underdog on the street. Okay. A lot of my colleagues who are public defenders or defense lawyers, they want to help the underdog that's in the courtroom, against the government, because somehow they think the government has unlimited resources to be able to prosecute these cases, which is certainly not the case. But the reason why I did it is because I want to help those who were being victimized on the streets. And one of the things that I think is important to stop victimization, there has to be some type of certainty of punishment. And there has to be a certainty that that punishment is real. And that is what is important about special circumstances, is that it tells the criminal on the street that this is a real punishment and you will serve real consequences. And that is how you actually deter crime. And that is what I think is so important about special circumstances. Not only does it appropriately charge people for their conduct, recognizing that not all murder cases are the same, but it appropriately charges, but it also deters people from committing certain types of heinous acts. And I think what we now have in Los Angeles is we have a total breakdown. And we have seen, especially in terms of gang murders, we have seen a huge surge in gang-related murders. Certain neighborhoods in Los Angeles, the most vulnerable neighborhoods in LA, the places that really cannot suffer any further, are suffering even more because of George Gascon's policies. I'm thinking of places like Florence Firestone, which is, a very impoverished neighborhood, has seen its murder rates go up 200%. Watts, 150%. And these are places that already had huge murder rates. So what is happening is that these reforms and these experiments are really devastating the most vulnerable communities in Los Angeles. And I think that's what we see with George Gascon. And I think, unfortunately, we saw that recently in the 2 murders of the El Monte police officers, where you had a guy who should never have been out of custody, but because of Gascon ignoring our laws, he was out of custody and he murdered 2 El Monte police officers. We also recently saw the same thing when he was ignoring how California treats juveniles, and instead released a juvenile out who committed a double murder. And then the same guy within 1 year committed another murder after being released because of George Gascon's policies. I mean, at some point, people have to realize that when they're experimenting with the criminal justice system, they're experimenting with people's lives
and their families that are left.
And the families, they're experimenting with people's property. They're experimenting with every aspect of a person's life. And people are not experiments. Lauren is not an experiment. Her brother should not have been an experiment. The fact that, that things will change so radically, where victims will now have to go to parole hearings for the rest of their lives with the fear that the person who killed their loved one in a heinous crime, it should not be acceptable in a civilized society.
Thank you.
I think about how grateful I am that this happened to me prior to Gascon's taking office. My heart breaks when I hear about stories that are happening right now. And I know that the families, he's not going to apply the special circumstances charges or, just even these people that are getting out and doing it again. And you think about those police officers, that man should have been in jail on Tuesday, not killing police officers.
Precisely.
And their families are devastated. Eric, I know you have to run. Lauren, if I can keep you a little bit longer.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric.
About advocating out there. Eric, God bless you for what you do. Thank you. Keep fighting the good fight and keep protecting victims, please.
Okay. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Lauren, again, like Eric said, thank you. I mean, it takes, for what you and your family have been through, it takes so much courage to just keep going. I can't imagine how tiring and scary it is. So let's talk about, you talked about the poster child. There's so much out there and it's so not true. So Tell us about that. Tell us about how the people out there are being misled by Cortese and by these people that are spearheading this.
So probably the most eye-opening experience from this has been that this isn't the way these people are prosecuted is a real trial with real facts and, you need real evidence. And when it came to SB 300, it's anything goes. You could say anything about this man who is deemed one of the state's worst of the worst because he has been charged with first-degree murder special circumstance. He's in jail for life without parole. And to have somebody that represents the state of California and so many supporters of organizations say that he's a victim of an unjust law is extremely painful. And to hear how they describe him, I've heard multiple things that he sold his laptop for gas money to drive home and visit his mom. I heard that he was just at my brother's apartment when a Marine experienced a PTSD episode and went nuts and crazy and shot my brother, and that he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think a lot of what the proponents of SB 300 are saying is that these are people that had minor involvements, like getaway drivers. They had nothing to do with the murder, and they're just now all of a sudden serving life without parole. And that's not the case. These are major participants. These are people that it's because of them that they're dead, that the victim is dead. So the way they talk about the bill and the people that they want to release is quite frankly not true. And if you looked any of their names up, you would find it easily.
So what they're saying out there, as they do, and they're moving through the legislature and testifying, they're completely misconstruing the facts of the trial you sat through with the murder.
Yes.
This man
This man organized my brother's death.
He spearheaded it.
Yes.
As Eric said, oftentimes, and in these cases that are charged, where the accomplices are charged just as much as the shooter, it is because they are the active driver of the homicide or the murder, correct?
Correct.
And that's what happened in your brother's case.
Yes.
So you brought up earlier when you were talking, you're now an only child. You have elderly parents. Can you even put into words this nightmare that you're going through right now?
It's haunting me. I can't believe that after almost 15 years that I'm dealing with this again. I was 20 years old. My brother died. I was in college out of state and I got this phone call and my whole college experience was destroyed by this. I missed walking in my graduation because we were in trial. I never missed a date. I flew home and I thought once that was over, it really was a done deal. Life without parole meant these people are never getting out. And now I feel like I'm fighting to prove that I am the victim. My brother is the victim. My family is the victim. These people in jail are not the victims. And I feel like I'm fighting that just to keep myself sane and make sure that this person doesn't get out of jail and doesn't hurt somebody else. All three of them, actually.
And you brought up, so the trial concludes, you feel like you have this breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
But then you had to go through this whole appellate process that you're still going through right now, correct?
So that process, and then after SB 1437 passed and was signed in 2019, they've been now petitioning against the changes in the felony murder rule for first-degree murder, which one of them has already done that last year and it was denied. His petition was denied. Last week, the Los Angeles Appeals Court affirmed that decision. So now the next person is up, the man who's the face of SB 300. And so we'll be going to court in July for that petition. And then depending on the results of that, then they could have potentially a new hearing, a resentencing, or go to the appeals for that. It's just constant.
And then even if that's affirmed, out there looms SB 300.
Yes, and SB 300 is just coincidentally happening at the same time.
And as you heard Eric say, when you heard Cortez himself say, "Oh, I'm going to make it effective January." What did he say? January of?
Yes, he said he was going to add this is at the Senate floor hearing. He said that some colleagues had asked him to add the verbiage that said this is not retroactive. When the start date of when it'd be effective, and that they had his commitment that he would do that, and he said that before they all voted. And then it passed, and that was last July 15th, 2021. And now we're in June, and it's still not added to the bill, and it's about to go to the vote for the assembly. It's also been said on the bill's sponsor's website, who is the mother of the man charged with killing my brother, that the author and all the co-authors have committed to her and all of their sponsors and supporters that they will make sure that the original intent of SB 300 sees through. So whether that means passing SB 300 this year, not retroactive, and then adding a new bill next year, they are determined to get him out of jail for a murder that he is 100% responsible for.
So Cortez, a year ago said he's going to amend this. We still don't have an amendment. It's still going through where it could be retroactive, where they're going to devastate special circumstances for the worst of the worst. People such as your brother's murderers and others that have tortured when they've killed, that have raped when they killed, that have kidnapped when they killed.
These are the high profile cases that everybody
is not out in our streets, basically, or not charged at all. So, and you live down in the Los Angeles area, you've seen the devastation, and now we're looking at doing this statewide, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes. We're basically creating Gascon's policies, which people are upset that he's not enforcing the law. We're going to make his policies an actual law by passing SB 300.
So, Lauren, you have been amazingly strong. You are spearheading this. We are 100% behind you.
Thank you.
And I know we're working. You've got now elected sheriff of Sacramento County, Jim Cooper, that's there helping you. Tell the public out there, what do we need? What kind of help do we need? We need people to step up, because you're not the only victim's family who's going to be affected by this.
Absolutely.
Family out there. So what do we want people to do?
You need to contact your local assembly member and demand that they vote no on this bill, and write letters to them, call their office. It's very easy. This has been a new process for me, and I've found it's extremely easy to get a hold of these people. They answer within the first couple rings. They're easy to talk to. You don't need to talk forever. It could be a very quick phone call, on your way to pick up your kid, whatever it is. You just let them know, vote no on this bill, and let them know why you think that these are the worst of the worst killers, and these people do not deserve to be set free. And victims deserve justice.
And for those people out there that say they may not know who their legislator, where to call, please call Crime Victims United. We will help you. We will direct you. You can call the office at 530-885-9544. You can go on our website and contact us, which is crimevictimsunited.com. We are so committed to Lauren, her family, to all of us.
Thank you.
And also, there are other victims out there. I know you and I tried to reach out to people. If this is going to affect your family, please contact us. We will.
And if you,
Lauren will speak for you if you can't, because I understand as a victim, I also understand how hard it is sometimes, how scary it is. We would love to have other victims join us, speak us. We'll do another podcast if we need
yes.
to. If not, we'll speak. You will speak for them.
Yes, share, because I have to say that this bill went through the entire Senate last year with the man who killed my brother as the face of the bill, and I had no idea until after the bill passed the Senate. So there's plenty of victims that don't know this is happening and would be devastated if they heard that, and terrified to live knowing that these people that they were guaranteed were going to be locked up forever will be set free. These are the people that everyone hears, these high profile murder cases that are on the news. These are them.
Yes. Lauren, you are amazing.
Thank you.
You
are. I'm so grateful to have the support of Crime Victims United.
And we're grateful to have you. I'm sorry we had to meet for these circumstances. Is there anything else you want to add before we close this out? And again, thank you for spearheading this. Please, people, just join us is what we're asking. But Lauren, I'll let you close it out.
Just speak up and let your local politician know that you do not want this bill to pass. You have to look out for your safety and the safety of others in the state of California.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You and your family.
Thank you.